Good morning, children.
Good morning, ma'am.
Morning, ma'am.
We learned about the different parts of human respiratory system, but the last part we couldn't complete as we had power failures. We'll continue the same topic. The first parts, I think you might have understood. The different parts of human respiratory system you might have understood. We were discussing about thoracic cavity or thoracic chamber. So let us continue with the same topic. And I told you that in human beings, a pair of lungs are present, and these lungs are present in an airtight thoracic chamber. And the thoracic chamber or thoracic cavity, or we even call it as chest cavity, it is bordered on different sides by different parts of our body. Let's see how this chamber is formed or what are the different borders of this particular chamber. And dorsally, it is formed by the vertebral column, ventrally by the sternum. Sternum is the breastbone to where our ribs are attached in front. You have learned in lower classes, we have ribs, rib cage, all the ribs together form the rib cage. The ribs are attached to the breastbone or sternum, except the floating ribs. They are attached to the sternum or breastbone in the front, and at the back they are attached to the vertebral column. So here in this figure also you can see the breastbone or sternum. So this part. So here the ribs will get attached. So I think here what we are seeing, it's not a clear picture. A portion of the vertebral column is also seen. Where the ribs are getting attached to the front, that is sternum or breastbone. At the back, they are attached to the vertebral column, and when they come to the front, they get attached to the breastbone or the sternum, except the floating ribs. You have learned about floating ribs. If not, you will be learning in the next, not the next chapter. We have to learn about the skeletal system. There we'll be learning it in detail. So lungs is situated in an airtight thoracic chamber. They are formed by, or this particular chamber is formed on the dorsal side by vertebral column, on the ventral side by sternum, laterally by the ribs, and on the lower side by the diaphragm. Once again, I'll repeat. If you just think, you will get, you don't have to by heart. If you just, because these are the structures which are present in your body, so you can make out where this thoracic cavity, or how this thoracic cavity is bordered on all the sides. On the lower side by diaphragm, laterally by the ribs, and dorsally, the back side by vertebral column, and on the ventral side by sternum. This type of arrangement helps in providing the required space to the lungs during inhalation and exhalation. You know, during inhalation, we take in oxygen, and during exhalation, we breathe out. So when inhalation and exhalation takes place, the lung volume or the space or the lungs have to expand and contract. When you inhale, the lungs will expand. So this particular arrangement, the presence of a thoracic chamber with the help of different parts of the body like vertebral column, sternum, ribs, diaphragm, all that will provide required space to the lungs so that it can carry out inhalation and exhalation. Any change in the thoracic cavity will influence the pulmonary cavity also. Pulmonary cavity is the cavity enclosed by the lungs or present in the lungs. The cavity, the space in the lungs is known as pulmonary cavity. So if by some reason the thoracic cavity is changing, accordingly the pulmonary cavity also will get changed, and that you will notice when this thoracic cavity, the volume increases and decreases accordingly. You can see changes taking place in the pulmonary cavity also. When you learn about the mechanism of respiration, you will understand it better. Then human respiratory system, we learned about different parts starting from the nostrils till the lungs, and but you can broadly categorize it into conducting part and exchanging part. human respiratory system, you can broadly classify into conducting part and exchanging part. Conducting part is from external nostril to the terminal bronchioles. Alveoli are not included here. From the external nostrils till the bronchioles, till the terminal bronchioles, it comes under, or these parts come under conducting part. And what is their role? It transport, or this conducting part, all the organs from nostril to terminal bronchiole, they transport, cleanse and humidify. They keep the air moist. They humidify, transport and cleanse the air. And where this air is transported to the alveoli. And it is in these alveoli that the exchange of gases takes place. So once again, human respiratory system, you can broadly categorize it into conducting part and the exchanging part. Conducting part includes the parts from external nostrils till the terminal bronchiole, and the function of the conducting part is to transport, cleanse and humidify the air reaching the alveoli. Whereas the exchanging part consists of alveoli, the site for exchange of gases. It is in these alveoli that the oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged, or the site of gaseous exchanges alveoli. So exchanging part is formed by the alveoli. Alveoli, they form the exchanging part. Not able to write over the diagram. No, sorry, the table. I'll check once again. No, I'm not able to write here. Hope you have understood. So what forms the exchanging part? The alveoli. Alveoli form the exchanging part. Clear? Any doubts? Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what are the different steps involved in respiration? So, in the process of respiration, several steps are involved. So, let's see which are the different steps. Pulmonary ventilation. That is simple. In simple terms, you can call it as breathing or pulmonary ventilation. Taking in of oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide, or else you can say taking in of oxygen, rich atmospheric air. Oxygen has to be taken from the atmosphere, and the carbon dioxide will be ejected out or removed out from the alveoli. How it is reaching alveoli? From different parts of your body. Each and every cell, respiration takes place, or oxidation of food materials will take place, and as a byproduct, carbon dioxide will be produced in each and every cell. So from all these cells, the carbon dioxide will be taken up by the blood, and the blood will bring it to alveoli. And from alveoli, oxygen will be expelled out. So pulmonary breathing means taking in of oxygen-rich atmospheric air and giving out carbon dioxide rich alveolar air. Second step, diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide across the alveolar membrane. I told you already, exchange of gases is taking place in the alveolar membrane. To facilitate it, alveoli, they are thin walled, richly supplied with blood vessels, and the diffusion, the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide will take place across the alveolar membrane. Then transport of gases by blood. Once oxygen has reached alveoli, it should be taken up by the blood so that it can be supplied to all parts of the body. Then diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between blood and tissues. So when the blood carrying oxygen reaches the cells, oxygen should be loaded. oxygen should be unloaded from the blood and it should reach the cells. And from the cells, the carbon dioxide should be returned to blood so that blood can take it back to the alveoli. I hope you're getting the point. Why the diffusion should take place across the alveolar membrane and also in the between the blood and tissues. So when you breathe in, when you're taking in air, when you're taking in oxygen, that will be finally, it reaches the alveoli, the site of exchange. So your alveoli gets richly supplied with oxygen when you breathe in. And this oxygen from the alveoli will diffuse across the alveolar membrane to the blood. So blood will be loaded with oxygen. And at the same time, the carbon dioxide present in the blood will be diffusing out into the alveoli. From the alveoli, carbon dioxide will be expelled out during exhalation. But the oxygen which the blood has received from alveoli will be taken to each and every cell. And once it reaches the tissues or the cells, again the exchange takes place. From the blood, oxygen goes into the cells, and from the cells, carbon dioxide already formed will diffuse out into the blood. And this process keeps on going. Okay? Michael, you're following? Yes. Any doubt, you can ask me to repeat. Cellular respiration. So once the cell is loaded with oxygen, then what is the next function? The food material should be burned, or oxidation of food material should take place, or you call it as cellular respiration. So in respiration, what is happening? Using the oxygen, glucose is oxidized or burned, and as a result you get energy and carbon dioxide will be formed. Again, this carbon dioxide present in the cells or formed in the cells as a result of respiration will be taken back by the blood to the alveoli, and from the alveoli oxygen will be supplied to the cells by blood. So this process keeps on going on in your body like a cyclic manner. So these are the major steps involved in respiration. Once again, breathing, that is the exchange, physical exchange of gases, taking in oxygen which is rich in taking in of oxygen rich atmospheric air and exhaling carbon dioxide rich alveolar air, then the diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide across alveolar membrane, and then transport by means of blood, then diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between blood and tissues, and finally cellular respiration. Utilizing oxygen, the food materials will be broken down for catabolic reactions and resultant release of carbon dioxide. So what is meant by catabolic reaction here? Catabolic reaction means breaking down reaction. So glucose molecule is broken down with the help of oxygen. So it's a catabolic reaction. Next, you are going to learn about mechanism of respiration. This you have been learning from class 7 or even before that. So let's see how the mechanism takes place, mechanism of breathing or mechanism of respiration. Breathing involves two stages, inspiration and mechanism of breathing. It involves two major stages, inspiration and expiration, or inhalation and exhalation. So there are two major steps in breathing, inspiration and expiration. On an average, a healthy human being breathes 12 to 16 times per minute. You can check how many times you breathe within 1 minute. Using a stopwatch, you can just try out how many times you breathe per minute. 12 to 16 times you breathe per minute, but that can fluctuate at times. Like when you have or you took part in some athletic race, or you climb the steps. Immediately after climbing the steps or after doing some vigorous exercise or some manual labor, after doing such activities, if you check your breathing rate, it can fluctuate. or after running for some time at a great speed, and then if you check your breathing rate, it can fluctuate. But on a normal case, under normal conditions, the breathing rate is 12 to 16 times per minute. Now, what is inspiration? Inspiration means taking in of air. Taking in of atmospheric air is known as inspiration or inhalation. Inspiration occurs if intrapulmonary pressure. Pulmonary is a word related to lungs. Intra, you know the difference between intra and inter. Intra means inside, inter means in between. So when the intrapulmonary pressure is less than the atmospheric pressure, so it is during this time, like if we need to inhale air, the pressure inside your lungs should be lower than the atmospheric pressure. Only then inspiration takes place. Expiration means releasing out of air, releasing out of alveolar air into the atmosphere, which is rich in carbon dioxide. So when you say taking in of atmospheric air, you can add taking in of atmospheric air containing oxygen, and exhalation, releasing out alveolar air rich in carbon dioxide. Okay, so anyhow you can modify the definition. And inspiration occurs when intrapulmonary pressure is less than the atmospheric pressure, whereas expiration takes place when intrapulmonary pressure is more than the atmospheric pressure. Once again, so the fluctuations or the differences in the pressure will result in expiration and inspiration. If inspiration has to take place, your pulmonary, the pressure inside your lungs should be less than that of the atmospheric pressure. But when it becomes more, the air will be exhaled out. Now let's see what are the different changes taking place when you inspire, when you inhale, when you take in air. You can try out, children. You just inhale and find out what is happening to your ribs, your diaphragm, your chest muscles, what is happening to your different parts of the body which is there or which forms part of your thoracic cavity. What are the changes taking place? You try to inhale. Just inhale. You know where is diaphragm? No, diaphragm is the dome-shaped muscle on which your lungs rest. So when you inhale, you can feel the diaphragm contracting or moving down. Then the volume of the thoracic chamber. I told you thoracic chamber is the chest cavity enclosed by vertebral column, sternum, diaphragm, ribs, etc. The volume inside increases in the anterior-posterior axis. You can find that in the anterior-posterior axis, the cavity, the chamber will increase in volume. That you can easily make out. When you inhale, expansion of the thoracic cavity, you can feel. External intercostal muscles. Costa means rib. Costa word meaning is rib. Intercostal, in between the ribs. So the muscles, the external muscles which are lying in between the ribs also will contract, and the ribs and the sternum will lift up. Your ribs and sternum also, you can feel them lifting up. Just feel, no? You just try to inhale. You can feel your ribs are, sternum, ribs, all these are getting lifted up. Diaphragm goes down. The thoracic chamber will increase in volume. Volume of the thoracic chamber increases in dorsoventral axis. Dorsoventral, you know, dorsal side your backbone and ventral side sternum. So in the beginning I told the anterior posterior axis. On the upper and lower side also, in that way also the volume is increasing. And in the dorsoventral axis, in all ways the thoracic chamber, its volume increases. And overall increase in the thoracic volume takes place, and as a result the pulmonary volume increase. You know, when volume increases, pressure decreases. So as a result, when the volume increases, the pressure decreases, and as a result, air from outside will rush into the lungs. So these are the changes taking place when you inspire or when you inhale. And if you know what are the changes taking place when you inhale, you can easily tell the points when exhalation is taking place. What all changes will take place when exhalation happens. So once again, I will repeat: the diaphragm contracts or it moves down. So that also will help in increasing the thoracic volume. So when the diaphragm contracts, so diaphragm is bordering it at the lower side. So when the diaphragm contracts and moves down, the volume of the thoracic chamber will increase in the anterior posterior axis. Anterior posterior axis, it will increase. Then next what happens? The external intercostal muscles, the muscles in between the ribs will contract. That will make the ribs and the sternum to lift up. So that makes the thoracic volume increase in dorsoventral axis also. So together by the contraction of diaphragm and external intercostal muscles, the volume of the thoracic chamber increases both in anterior posterior and dorsoventral axis. And when the volume inside the lungs increase, this will result, I told you in the beginning, any change in the thoracic volume will affect the volume of the pulmonary cavity also. So when the thoracic volume increases, that will result to an increase in the pulmonary volume. So when volume increases, pressure decreases. And I told you a clause in the beginning: if inhalation should take place, the pressure inside the lungs should be less than the atmospheric pressure. So as the volume is increasing, pressure gets decreased, than the atmospheric pressure, and air from outside will rush in. Okay, clear? Can I get a
Yes, ma'am.
response from you? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now moving on to expiration. In expiration, there we learned about the contraction of diaphragm, which increases the thoracic volume in anterior posterior axis, and the contraction of the external intercostal muscles, which will result in the increase in the volume of the thoracic chamber in dorsoventral axis. But here what is happening? Diaphragm and intercostal muscles both will relax, and diaphragm and sternum return to their normal positions. Thoracic volume reduces, and when the thoracic volume reduces, pulmonary volume will reduce. When volume is less, pressure increases. So intrapulmonary pressure will increase above the atmospheric pressure, and as a result, air gets expelled out from the lungs. Okay. Once again, diaphragm and external intercostal muscles will relax, which will bring back diaphragm, sternum, and even ribs back to its normal position. As a result, the thoracic volume will reduce, which will in turn reduce the volume of pulmonary cavity. When the volume decreases, pressure increases than the atmospheric pressure, which will result in the expulsion or ejection of air from our lungs. And that is how expiration takes place. Okay, children? Have you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Today also, a few are absent. So quickly summarize, children, what we have learned just now. Tell me about thoracic chamber first. Evelyn, what
Ma'am,
we learned?
can you please show the last slide?
I will show. Evelyn, what we learned about thoracic chamber?
Thoracic chamber.
A little louder, Evelyn.
Okay, ma'am. Lungs are situated in an airtight thoracic chamber, and thoracic chamber is
Formed
formed
by?
dorsally,
Formed by?
dorsally by the vertebral column and
Dorsally by
ventrally,
vertebral column, then
verteb-
ventrally by?
ventrally by the sternum,
Hmm,
laterally by the ribs,
hmm.
and lower side by the diaphragm.
Okay, good. Explain the mechanism of inspiration. Michael, how is inspiration taking place, or what are the changes that will lead to inspiration? What all changes take place in your body? To begin with,
First, you inhale the air through
that definitely we have to inhale. That what I asked is, what all facilitate this process? Some changes take place when you're inhaling, or which will lead to inhalation. Some muscles will contract. So I'm asking about that.
your diaphragm will contract.
Diaphragm will
It will contract.
contract.
Expand.
And then when diaphragm contracts, what will happen to the thoracic chamber?
Then the pressure in the thoracic chamber will
That
be.
we'll come to that later. But what happens to the volume? Pressure after saying about volume. So when diaphragm is contracting, volume will
increase.
in which direction? The diaphragm is over here. It's contracting. So in which direction? Anterior, posterior axis. In between you sleep, Michael? Do you sleep in between? Very few points we discussed. So it will increase in the anterior, posterior axis. Rijas, continue.
External intercostal muscles contracts.
And as a result?
Ribs and sternum
Will
get
lifted up. Then what happens to the thoracic volume?
The volume increase in dorsal ventral
Dorsoventral axis. And as a
Dorsal
result, Anna, continue. Now the thoracic volume has increased. That will lead to
Overall increase in thoracic volume, which in turn increases in pulmonary volume.
which will increase the pulmonary volume. Then Gayatri, continue.
As the pulmonary volume increases, there is a decrease in the intrapulmonary pressure. Therefore, the air rushes in.
Okay. Then during exhalation, what are the changes taking place? Naurin?
Diaphragm and the intercostal muscles relax, and the diaphragm and sternum return back to the normal position. And the thoracic volume reduces, and for the pulmonary volume also reduces. So this leads to an increase in interpulmonary. This leads to an increase in interpulmonary pressure than the atmospheric pressure, causing the expulsion of air from the lungs.
Good. So with that, we have completed the mechanism of breathing. So Nia wanted to see the last slide. I think her connectivity went by then. Was that the reason? Nia? Nia, are you there? Nia? Okay. For you, I'm just showing the slide. Yes. See the slide. Okay. Nia, is that okay? Shall I proceed to the next one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Children, next what we are going to learn is few terms. A few terms are given in your textbook. No shortcuts. You need to learn all these as such. It can be asked, what is meant by tidal volume? What is the amount? Or what is the difference between inspiratory and expiratory reserve volume? You need to learn, and definitely you can expect 1 or 2 marks questions from this. So let's see in your printed note as well as here I've made it in a table format. So you can even take a screenshot of the same. And in your textbook, it is just given, not as a table form, but the same thing is given. And starting with the first one, tidal volume. So we abbreviate it as TV, tidal volume. Tidal volume means volume of the air inspired or expired during normal respiration. So when you respire normally, the volume of air which is inspired or the one which is expired, and that is around 500 ml, 500 milliliters. Then inspiratory reserve volume and expiratory reserve volume, IRV, ERV. Let's see what is the difference. Inspiratory reserve volume is the additional, just a minute. Additional volume of air a person can inspire or inhale by forceful inspiration. So here we learned during normal respiration how much air can be taken in or out, that is tidal volume. But inspiratory reserve volume is the additional volume a person can inspire by forceful inspiration. That can come around 2,500 to 3,000 milliliters. Whereas expiratory reserve volume, so some terms only you need to change. Additional volume of air a person can expire by forceful expiration. So extra after normal expiration, how much extra by forcefully expiring, how much air you can breathe out. So that is expiratory reserve volume. It's between 1,000 and 1,100 milliliters. Okay, once again I will repeat. Tidal volume is when you inspire or expire normally the volume of air given out or taken in during normal respiration. That is 500 ml. But inspiratory reserve volume means the additional volume of air. So even after normally expiring out, you can carry out a forceful expiration and give out more air. That is expiratory reserve volume. And similarly, the additional amount of air you can take in, inhale by forcefully inspiring, that is known as inspiratory reserve volume. Purposely, forcefully, it's not normally happening. Purposely we are taking in more air or giving out more air. Then residual volume, residue, something which is left behind. So volume is volume of air remaining in the lungs even after forceful expiration. You exhale, not normal expiration. Forcefully you're trying to exhale out, breathe out. Still some volume of air will be there in the lungs. Lungs will not collapse completely. Some amount of air always will remain in your lungs. So that is known as residual volume, and that comes between 1,100 and 1,200 milliliters. Okay. Once again, we learned about tidal volume, residual volume, inspiratory reserve volume, and expiratory reserve volume. Any doubt? Just to learn it as such. Make some codes, as I used to tell you earlier. Make some tips and tricks to memorize all these. So we'll continue next period. So thank you, children. Come prepared for the test next period. So half of the class half of the period I'll be taking class, and remaining time you will have a short test. Thank you.